Eruvin Daf Yud. Today's email comes from Elchanan Press when he asks, in addition to all the shiurim, can I also give a chumash shir? And the answer is, sorry, perhaps in the very far future. We learned that in order for a kaira to be kosher, it has to be strong enough to hold a half a brick, which is 3 tvachim by 1.5 tvachim. What about if you put a kaira on top of poles? Do the poles have to be that strong? Machlokes, Rabbi Rav Huna says they don't. Rav Chizah says the poles need to be strong enough to hold a kaira plus a brick. What if a guy wants to be super machmer? Instead of just having a kaira, he throws a reed mat over the kaira, and it doesn't reach within 3 tfachim of the ground. Says the Gemara, he lost that on the kaira because the kaira is covered, it's not recognizable. He lost that on a mechitza because this is not considered a mechitza because a goat could go underneath it. What if a guy has a kaira that doesn't reach the wall? Or 2 kairas that don't reach each other? Well, if they're within 3 tfachim of each other, you could apply the halach of lavud. Or according to Rav Shimon Gamliel, if they're within 4 tfachim of each other, or 4 tfachim from the wall, lavud. Otherwise, you need another kaira. What if 2 kairas, each one is, let's say, a half a tefach, it can't hold a brick, but the 2 of them together could hold a brick? Kosher. What if one of those kairas is above the other? We could apply a halacha called chavayt, and you bring it down halachically, and it is kosher. Rabbi Yossi says, provided that the upper one is not above 20 amas, because above 20 amas we say a kaira is possible. He argues on his own father, Rabbi Yehuda, who in the first mission Eruvin says that above 20 amas is kosher. Rav heard his famous Talmud, Rav Yehuda, teaching Rav's son, Chia, the halach in our Mishnah. The concept of Ryan, we pretend, and the Mishnah brings it 4 times in Rabbi Yehuda, that if a kaira is weak, can't hold a brick, Ryan, we pretend it's strong, it's made out of metal. Says Rav, don't teach him that. That's not what it says in the Mishnah. In fact, you have to say the opposite. According to Rabbi Yehuda, there is no concept of Ryan, and it has to be strong enough to hold a brick. One of the things in the Mishnah that we say, Ryan, if it's made out of straw, we pretend it's metal. Isn't that the same exact case as if it was weak, we pretend it's metal? So the Gemara, straw can never become straw inherently is a weak material. The chiddush is that we say Ryan even on straw. What if it's bent? The chiddush is that even though the bend goes out of the mavui, nevertheless, we say that we're not concerned that the person will leave the mavui to go into the bend. It's still kosher. And the way it works is, if you snip the bend off, and the 2 pieces are close to each other after you take that bend out, they're close to each other within 3 tvachim, then we apply lavud. Another halach in the Mishnah is agula. What if the beam, the kaira, is completely round? Again, Ryan, we pretend that you cut it in half, and now you have a flat surface. How do you know if you can do that? Says the Mishnah, the concept of pi. If the circumference of this beam is 3 tefachim, that means that the diameter is 1 tefach. And the Gemara says we learn this out from Yamsha Shlema. Shlema HaMelech made a giant mikvah. The Gemara says it could contain 150 regular mikvahs of 40 saw. We see the Torah says that it was 10 by 10 by 30 in circumference. So you see, if you have a 10 diameter, the circumference is 30, and you measure that from the inside, so you don't have to count for the edge. The Vilna Gaon says an amazing thing here. The pasuk that says these measurements says kav, kuf vav, which is 106, but it says it with a hey, which is very unusual. With a hey, it's 111. Says the Vilna Gaon, if you take 106 divided by 111, and you time it by the following word, shloshim, or 3, you'll come out with exactly pi to the 4th decimal. 3.1415. Incredible. But the Gemara tells us you don't really need the exact pi, according to Tosfos Rosh. We could round it out to 1 tefach will equal 3 in circumference. Now, how do we know that Reb Chia, what he says that Yamsha Shlema could contain 150 mikvahs? Because the pasuk says that Yamsha Shlema contained 2,000 bas, which is 6,000 saw. 6,000 divided by 40 saw, a regular mikvah is 40 saw, 6,000 divided by 40 equals 150. Now, how did it fit in Yamsha Shlema? If it was 5 tfachim high and it was square, that's 500 cubic amas, which is 166 mikvahs. So how do we do it? The Gemara says something very interesting. The first 3 amas were square. That means 300 cubic amma is 100 mikvahs, because a mikvah is 1 by 1 by 3, that equals 40 saw. So 300 cubic amas is 100 mikvahs. The top 2 amas, if they were square, it would be 200 cubic amas. But we know that a circle is 25% less than a square. Therefore, that equals to 150 cubic amma, and 150 cubic amma equals 50 mikvahs. So together we have 150 mikvahs. But there's another pasuk that contradicts and says that Yam Shlomo actually was able to contain 3,000 bas, not 2,000. The Gemara answers 2,000 in liquid, 3,000 in solid. In other words, you could be goidish, you could heap it up. And from here you see that if you have a kli that's in these kind of diameters, that it's twice as wide as it is tall, you could heap it up by a third. Instead of 2,000 in liquid, 3,000 in solid. The same thing we say, a shida table migdal. You have these boxes that contain 40 sa in liquid, can contain 60 sa in solid. They are no longer considered a kli. And if they're not a kli, they're not mekabel tuma. But you see that solid could go a third more than the liquid. The Mishnah says, l'choyayin, in plural, meaning the lechis that Rabbi Lezer and Chacham argue on. In the Mishnah, do you need two? Do you need one? Every lechi needs to be 10 tefachim high and could be also a kolshu, a nothing in width, the size of a string of a coat. Rabbi Yossi says, no, it has to be 3 tefachim wide. What if a person put a lechi halfway through his mavi? He's permitted to carry in the first half up to that lechi, and the chiddush is we're not concerned that he's going to go into the part that does not have a lechi. Rava says, if a person distanced the lechi 3 tefachim from the ground or 3 tefachim away from the wall, it's not a good lechi, because even according to Rav Shimon Gamliel, it says lavod up to 4 tefachim. Over here, we'll agree that it's not, because a goat could go underneath it. Rav Yosef, who we know was sick later on in life, gave a drasha, and he told everybody that halacha is not like Rabbi Yossi when it comes to two things. In our sugi by lechi, that you need 3 tefachim according to Rabbi Yossi, and in Hilmi, that salt, you can't make any amount of salt water on Shabbos. So Rav Huna told him, you didn't say this when you were healthy and you remembered everything. You didn't tell us the halacha is not like Rabbi Yossi by lechi. You only said the halacha is not like Rabbi Yossi by Hilmi, because in fact, as we mentioned the other day, Rebbe holds like Rabbi Yossi. So therefore, the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi. Rav Chumi taught that the halacha is not like Rabbi Yossi, but later on he retracted it, and Rav explains, Gemara explains, the reason why he retracted it is because the famous Gemara in Gittin, Daf Samach Zayin, that Rabbi Yossi is Nimukay Imoy. The halacha is always like Rabbi Yossi. Abaye says, what do we do? La halacha is a lechi, a mashu, a lechi 3 tefachim. Puk chazi, may amadvar. Check out all the mavais. You'll see a typical mavai, they use smaller lechis. They don't use the 3 tefachim. Some people say that this was said in regard to drinking water if you're thirsty. That the Tanna Kama says you make a shahakal, and Rabbi Tarfon says you make a burden of fashas before you drink the water. And they asked Abai, what's the halach? And he said, Puk chazi may amadvar. The Klal Yisrael makes a shahakal before they drink water, not a burden of fashas. Have a wonderful day.